Hello, it's Joe Simhard here. Thanks for tuning in. It's June 6th, and yesterday I got a couple notices regarding a court case about, and we've done this before on Liana Shanti. This is not what she looks like. It's kind of a created avatar she uses on her website. Anyway, she's been in court for parole violation. She's been on parole for bankruptcy fraud charges in Hawaii. And it was noticed by her parole officer that she may be violating her conditions of parole, especially with the way she's operating her website and influencing people, and not paying taxes perhaps again. So all this came up in court. And a recommendation by the court came out yesterday, which I have here. It's in the District of Hawaii, and it's the government's position. Possible probation modification will take place. But basically, it's saying that the government recommends that Special Condition 12 be modified to ensure that the defendant notifies others of her criminal record given the allegations set forth in the letters to the court. Such a modification makes sense because many individuals visiting the defendant's social media accounts or websites may be unaware of the defendant's true background. Well, that's an understatement. So let's go ahead here. So further down, it says, the government recommends, and then there's this long case number, that the defendant be required to notify others that visit social media accounts or websites that control her true identity and criminal history. The notice should inform others that under the name Liane Wilson, the defendant was convicted of bankruptcy fraud in the District of Hawaii in criminal case number 19-00105 SOM. The notice should be prominently featured in the defendant's websites and or any website she controls regarding any social media accounts belonging to the defendant or for any other accounts the defendant controls. The notice should be posted weekly so that anyone visiting these accounts will be made aware of the defendant's true identity and criminal history. The government has spoken to defense counsel and they object to any modifications anyway. So the case will go on. It's, the defense is going to come up with something, obviously. But what fascinates me about this whole thing is the transcript. And in her self-defense, the defendant, Liane Wilson, starts rambling, accusing others of doing things and claiming that she's really a true representative of abused children and abused women, and the people don't understand, how these people are misunderstood and how their stories are distorted and blah, blah, blah. So she says in the middle of this rambling statement, I'm currently in a doctorate program for psychology. So I don't know anything about that other than it's probably online, but let's go on. Because I want to understand even more why are children not believed? And the reason that less than 20% of these cases are prosecuted is because of evidence. In the Department of Justice study, it said prosecutors have their hands tied because they're relying on little children and everybody believes little children. And then the court interrupts her because she's been rambling for a while here and not making a lot of sense, just making a lot of, throwing a lot of stuff on the wall, so to speak. The court says, can you slow down? Because the court reporter is going to have a hard time. And the defendant says, sorry. The court, okay, you're kind of racing. The defendant, sorry, it's my panic disorder. All right, so here we have her admitting to an anxiety disorder, which might explain a lot about her behavior. She might need treatment and not go out there and run this game of hers as a so-called representative of Jesus and an astrologer and an expert on everything about abuse and diet and whatever. Anyway, so here she says, sorry, it's my panic disorder. Okay. And the reason prosecutors have trouble with these cases is because they've deemed the witnesses to be very difficult because children change their story, then children get scared. They're worried about if they're going to be taken, even from an abuser, and there is mountains of psychology research on this, which is why President Biden, just signing in Caden's law in March, is to educate judges and to educate prosecutors and to educate guardian ad litem's, because this is a huge gap in the justice system. And I've seen it time and time again where these children are crying out for help. These mothers are crying out for help. All right. We don't know what she means by I've seen it time and time again. I mean, she's not working in the field. She advises people remotely from her website account. She doesn't really know if they're telling her the truth about all their abuse cases or if they're also conflating or confabulating what they think is abuse based on their own anxiety disorders, which haven't been treated. You know, so you get the idea here is that she's in territory that she has no right to claim to know anything about. And then she goes on, and in 78, there's a confirmed statistic, 78% of these cases, the children are removed from their protective parent, and in some cases permanently, the minute a child claims sexual abuse. And I have people that are in my community that are deathly afraid of losing their children, and they ask, you know, these advocates, well, if, and she goes on and on. Okay, so, I mean, she's right. There's a percentage of people, and I've worked in mental health for 25 years. So, you know, some of the people I work with are professionals in this field of social work that address abused children and abuse in families, and they have to go in and make a decision based on evidence and what they've gathered, whether to remove a child or children, put them in foster care. But there's layers and layers of correction and checking the evidence where remedies can be applied for. You know, so a lot of these cases do work out, and some of them do fall through the cracks. You know, the justice system isn't perfect, but it's a lot better than what she's claiming with this so-called 78% thing. I don't even know where she gets that number. She doesn't back it up. She doesn't back up a whole lot of anything. You know, she can't back up, for instance, that there is such a thing as a Lemurian sisterhood. It doesn't mean anything. It's like a fantasy, like a Harry Potter thing that was made up in order to carry her narrative, her story. But a lot of people have joined the Lemurian sisterhood based on her claims and advocacy for this particular kind of cult. So anyway, I just wanted to bring this up. It's an ongoing story. I'm sure her lawyers might be challenging some of this, but basically it looks like the court is recommending that she has to put a disclaimer in there that she is a convicted felon. She's on parole, and that you should question her background because she's not presenting herself as she really is. And that's something that we should do with every cult leader. We should always look behind the curtain. You know, or as Irving Goffman said, look to the off-stage reality of what's going on, not just what's staged on the internet and in brochures and whatever the cult leader is saying. But we need to do the hard work of looking behind the curtain and to protect ourselves from fraud and from misrepresentation and from manipulation. Yeah, it takes a little work. It can take a lot of work. But in the long run, you will save yourself a lot of pain and anxiety and recovery time if you can unmask a cult leader before you get involved too deep in their rabbit hole. Anyway, so I'll do more updates on Liana later. Thank you for listening and have a good day. Bye-bye.